customary drink of water before the coughing begins, because you know what's going to happen. Don't never start coughing until I start talking. Now my nose wants to run. But I'm not worried about it. All right, this is Sports for Real. Coach Hall, for those of you out there getting ready for these big games that's coming up today. Tonight you got Alabama trying to knock off Oklahoma. A lot of people have that as a foregone conclusion. I kind of do, because Brent Venables, to me, is not a good head coach. I never thought he would be a good head coach, and he's proven me right. And the way it's going for him, it ain't going to be long, except for the fact that he's got that big contract. Those big contracts save a lot of coaches from getting early termination, but you have to give these coaches these big contracts, because if you don't, they're going to go sign with somebody else. So it's all part of the game. But that's just one big matchup tonight. Alabama, Oklahoma. Got a couple other big matchups. Ole Miss trying to hold on to their position in the college football playoff race by taking on Florida. But that's another trap game, especially the way the Gators are playing now. They got good defense. They're going to have the head coach back. He survived. He got a big buyout. They don't want to get rid of him either. So that's pretty much what's saving him. And Ole Miss is going to have to fight through that. Ole Miss doesn't traditionally play well in the swamp. And with the momentum that they're gaining in Gainesville, they better come with their A game. But today we're going to talk about the Big Ten. Before I get into that, let's talk about the Big 12. But anybody out there, like and subscribe. That'd be greatly appreciated. Before I get into that, let's talk real quick about the Big 12. There's a heavy race going on right now with Colorado and, surprisingly, Arizona State at the top. And Arizona State has been playing probably the best football in the Big 12, but they got a big boost last week when Kansas knocked off BYU. Now, I don't think the upsets are still over yet in the Big 12, because I told you a couple of weeks ago that Colorado, their biggest game wasn't against Utah. Their biggest match was going to be against Kansas. Kansas is playing now the way that people expected them to play at the beginning of the season. They were making a lot of turnovers, and they were blowing some games. But they seem to have that problem solved. And if they come and play the way they've been playing the last couple of weeks, they're going to give Colorado more than they can handle. These guys are longtime rivals out of the Big 8. And they went to the Big 12 together, and Colorado broke that before coming back to the Big 12. So these two teams are very familiar with each other. And it should be a very interesting matchup. But if Kansas plays the way they've been playing the last couple of weeks, then this is going to be a tough matchup for Colorado. But on the other side of that, if Colorado is able to dissect them and move the ball the way they've been doing in the last couple of weeks, then you start to see that Colorado is really better than most people think. And if they do dissect Kansas, then I'm going to go ahead and make the prediction right now. They're going to win the Big 12 championship. Maybe they'll get to the playoffs, maybe they won't, but we won't worry about that right now. But that'd be something to watch for. But the big game that's going to take place in less than an hour, you got Indiana going into Ohio State. Now, Ohio State, if you're not aware, they lost their starting center to an ACL injury in practice, and he's done for the season. Very critical, because if they do get to the playoffs, I told you guys before that the playoffs, whoever wins that championship, is going to come down to who's healthy. Everybody's beating up on each other now instead of one or two teams. Everybody's beating up on each other. And then it's going to get even more rugged when you get to the playoffs. So whoever has the most weapons left in the end, that's going to be who wins the championship. Right now, everybody's still jockeying for position. In Indiana, they can punch their ticket today if they can knock off Ohio State. Now, I think it's in Indiana's favor because of the way the game comes about. Ohio State's got Michigan next week, and I don't care what anybody tells you in Ohio or anywhere else, they base their whole existence on playing against Michigan. And because of that, I think they're going to kind of not necessarily overlook Indiana, but being that they've had their way with Indiana over the years, they don't really take Indiana serious. I think Michigan, it was the same way. Michigan came out like they expected to beat Indiana, And I think Indiana expected that maybe they would get beat by Michigan. But they finally shook all that off and started to play good football and pull that game out in the end. Because they played Michigan, a team that's dominated them over the years, they kind of got some of that out of their head. And I think it's going to make a big difference today because they're going to walk into that full stadium. Fans are going to be all over the place. And they're going to be making all kind of noise trying to throw this team off. And the weak among you are going to get rattled. But somehow, I think that Rourke is going to stand in there and throw that football because any good quarterback, when the game is on the line, you got to stand in there and throw it. And I think he's going to be able to do that. And I'm predicting that Indiana is going to knock off Ohio State today in the shoe. But even if they don't, and they make the game respectable or lose late in a close game, I still think they're going to win a playoff spot because they got Purdue next week. They can get some beauty points by blowing them out. They don't like each other, so that'd be great. I don't know what that means, but don't worry about it. So what I'm saying to you is it should be a great matchup today in Ohio State. But since Ohio State is playing Michigan next week, it plays well for Indiana that this is a chance that they have opportunity to do something they've never done in school history. They've already won 10 games. They've already been ranked in the top 5. These are things that they've never done at this school before. And because of that, I think these guys want to see just how far they can go. And the coach, he has said he's not going to leave, but you know he's going to be a hot ticket item this year when all the firings take place. But he says he's not going anywhere. You know, you can't believe what a coach says until he actually does something. But this guy here seems to be trying to stamp his own ground here. And if he can keep it going and get another quarterback to replace Rourke, then Indiana can be a threat moving forward in the future. But for today, it's going to be tough on them early. They're going to have to overcome some things. And if they can settle down and play some football, they should be able to handle Ohio State today. Let's see what these comments say. Harrison Hammond says, can you do a video chat, Mark? I don't know what you're talking about. Miss Edit says, yo, can you name a car for an edit? I don't know what you're talking about. And Clyde says, does IU deserve a playoff spot over an SEC team? Well, if they go undefeated, you can't deny them because they would play Ohio State and they would beat Michigan. And if those two teams have the credibility to be the SEC team, then why wouldn't IU have that same credibility? Now, everybody in the SEC aren't world beaters. Remember, these teams been playing each other for years. And I don't care how good you are. If you come into my place and I got some grudge against you, I might be motivated to play against you just from that. So close games in the SEC are just like close games anywhere else. Matchups make the difference. And anybody can win. And the beauty of this new college football setup, you have these teams have to step outside their normal lane. You get a chance to see how they will perform. Who would ever thought that Indiana, with the addition of the 4 schools from the Pac-12, they would be one of the teams making it to the conference championship? Who predicted that? Nobody. SEC, Texas A&M, who predicted that? They just got rid of the so-called super coach Jimbo Fisher. Nobody expected Texas A&M to be around anywhere. So it doesn't really matter. It's who you playing against that particular day. And are you ready to play and do you match up with what they have? That's what it comes down to. All that conference crap don't mean nothing. So if Indiana does go undefeated, yes, they deserve a playoff spot over an SEC team. Does that mean that they could beat every team in the SEC? No. But does that also mean that those same teams you talking about in the SEC can beat everybody else? I never seen that, and you probably never will. All right. Panda Young says, question, between the cop, plum, and mechanic, which one of the 3 do you trust the most? That's got nothing to do with sports, so if you ask me a sports-related question, then maybe I'd answer it. So, but yes, the SEC is a rugged league, and those games are all tough. But anytime that a Vanderbilt can sneak up and whip Alabama, that lets you know that Indiana or anybody else can do the same thing to Alabama. You guys act like that the SEC is invincible. I've seen a lot of SEC teams get whipped over the years. Yes, Alabama's been dominant. LSU's been dominant. Or better yet, the top team in the SEC every year can play with any other team in the nation, but that doesn't mean every team in the SEC can play with everybody else in the nation. All right, what's your favorite NFL team? Well, I was going to talk about that later, but I want to talk about my Steelers, man. They got by Baltimore last week, and then they lay an egg Thursday night against Cleveland. But I almost predicted that because it's a trap game just by the way that the schedule's set up. Anytime you play a short week, then you can't give your full preparation for an opponent. Something's going to get overlooked. Now, that's no excuse because the other team has that same problem. But Pittsburgh's always had trouble with Cleveland. No matter how far you want to go back, you want to go back all the way to the 50s when they first started playing. But the way the NFL is set up, I believe some of the games are already predetermined. And what better results can you get than a Pittsburgh team who just dispatched Baltimore get beat by lowly Cleveland? Now, Cleveland did the same thing to Baltimore. And the other team they beat was Jacksonville. So they only won 3 games this year, but 2 of those games were epic upsets. And I think the league is just ecstatic about that. It's all for ratings. But when it comes down to the playoffs, the Steelers are going to be right there because that game they played against Baltimore, they showed you how to stop the Ravens. There's a blueprint to beating the Ravens. You got to stop the run between that tackle. You got to keep Jackson in the pocket to make him throw the football. That's what it takes. All right, Notre Dame is playing the best, hands down. So you say, but you got to beat USC. Yeah, I know USC lost all those games, but USC should be undefeated right now. So you're talking about a team with, what you got, 4 losses, 5 losses now? But that's a team that can play with anybody in the nation. It's just, can they finish the game? You always get hit with a right hook with no time on the clock. That's the only reason why they're not undefeated. All right? Diddy, I don't care about no Diddy. And it's always room for you on the Saints side. Man, let me tell you something about them Saints, man. You guys only a couple wins away from putting them bags back on your face. Remember them Aints days? Well, you ain't the Aints, but you close. So I think you and your Saints need to sit down somewhere, man. And speaking of that, the Steelers, we selling bandwagon tickets, man. But as the day goes by, the price goes up. So when we calling us in December talking about getting the seat, man, it's already full, man. You're going to have to play 5 times the price. You want to jump on this bandwagon, man. What do you think about the Notre Dame coach? Hey, you're doing a good job. I mean, what am I supposed to say? Kobe 24 lost 1,800 on the Browns beating Baltimore. Well, you know, like I said before, that is a game that is tailor-made for the league to have some influence on that. As you know, that the original Browns moved to Baltimore and became the Ravens. So there's always going to be a natural rival that's never going to go away. And they'll show up if nobody else shows up against Baltimore. All right, Cleveland was 2 ABD coming in. I don't know what that means. The Steelers thought they could just walk over them. That's why they didn't play. No, that's not the reason why. It all comes down to preparation. It's about this much difference between the top team and the bottom team in the NFL. And if you're not thoroughly prepared, and even if you are, if the other team is thoroughly prepared, then it comes down to the bounce. And if you make the mistake at the wrong time, you're going to lose. All right. Reluctant gamer says, yo, what, man? What are you talking about? So, again, Indiana's going to take on Ohio State. What do you guys think about that, man? You think Indiana's a fluke? You think Indiana's going to get blown out today? What happens if Indiana blows out Ohio State? What you going to say then? Ohio State defense is not as good as Michigan. You see what Oregon did for them. So this is not something that is out of the ordinary that Indiana couldn't beat Ohio State. Okay, you see. No, you said that Pittsburgh didn't play up to their ability. Well, I didn't think they didn't play up to their ability. They made some mistakes, and that's all. Nobody's perfect. But they got to come to Pittsburgh. They're going to play again, so it's not like it's any big deal. Pittsburgh still is in control. But the problem I got with Pittsburgh, they've always had the propensity to bullshit. And if you understand what I mean by that, they go out and beat the best teams, and the next week turn around and lose to the worst teams. They got 3 losses. all three to teams with bad records. They lost to the Cowboys, they lost to the Colts, and you lose to the Browns. That's what I mean. They had a propensity to BS. That's Pittsburgh for you. All right. Sporty Cuz says Steeler gang. Well, they better gang up and tighten up because I've seen teams collapse the last 4 or 5 games of the season, and it's not out of the realm that they can't do it. You know, Baltimore waiting to see them again, so that's going to be another epic clash when they go down to Baltimore in a couple weeks. So Pittsburgh is not out of the woods by any imagination. Plus, they got to go play that team with the rabbit's foot in their pocket, the Chiefs. But they are coming to Pittsburgh, though. So, but what do you think about this Indiana game, man? Somebody tell me something about Indiana, man. You ever thought you'd see the Hoosiers playing football undefeated this late in the season with a chance to make some noise? One thing about it, though, with this playoff system, nobody can hide. And I'm hearing predictions about the way that they're doing the scheduling. The teams that they're seeding, and nobody knows how they're determining what the seeds could possibly be, and that's opening the door for controversy down the line. I hear Georgia coach, he complaining, but what he's really doing, he's campaigning, is telling everybody, look at us, we're still a good football team, and they are. It's just that they're in a bad spot now, losing to Ole Miss and Alabama, who both have 2 losses. So the tiebreakers don't work too well for the Bulldogs. The best they could do is an at-large bid, and I don't think it's going to work out for them like that. What Georgia needs to do is hope that Texas A&M gets knocked off by Auburn today, and Texas loses to Kentucky. Otherwise, that game next week is going to be for the final spot in the SEC championship game. Well, the first spot in the SEC championship game, because you're going to have a 2-loss team in there. Okay, Browns. You NFL guys, they got this thing called Fango Media. I didn't put it in the chat this time, but we have people who go and talk to fans after the games and get their reactions. They have the video now posted on the Browns' reaction over the Steelers. You're going to have some classic response there. But I do the one in Jacksonville. I harass the fans when they come out of the game trying to get their thoughts. You might not be surprised to realize that I can't get anybody from Jacksonville to talk to me these days. So I go talk to the other fans. You know, the last 2 games they had Minnesota come in last time, and the week before that they had Green Bay. And both those fans had more fans in the stands than they had Jaguar fans. And that's not a good look for the Jaguars. And because of that, you know, it looks like that Doug Peterson's on his way out down here, and the whispers are that Belichick is going to take over. I don't know why you want to bring in a guy like that. Belichick's what, 73, 74? How long do you think he's going to come down here and be a coach? Maybe pull a Bobby Bowden, you know, delegate the authority and just be the head guy and take all the credit. But if you recall, the Redskins years ago, they caught Vince Lombardi. He was up in age, and then he caught sick and he perished. I'm not wishing that on anybody, but you have to look to the long-term future of your franchise, and I don't think an old guy like Bill Belichick is the answer. You better find some young up-and-coming guy, and maybe he could stick around a while. And based on college circles, we talked about Colorado today. Deion Sanders is in everybody's mouth about being a coach. I don't think it'd be a good idea for him to try to come to the pros. He already said that's not what he wants to do. But he has the opportunity to stay where he is right now and do his own thing. But in the end, I'm sticking to my original opinion. He's only doing this for his sons. He's got them in position to do what they're going to do. And they're done well with that, and there's nothing else for him to do. So I think he's not going to be in Colorado very much longer. Now, he may surprise me and stick around, but I just don't see it. But the Florida State, he's at odds with them. And the Cowboys, that really wouldn't be a good spot for him. So I just think Deion's going to sail off into the sunset when his sons are through with their eligibility. All right. Bang, bang, Browns gang. Well, we'll see you again, Browns. Big G, you don't want to look at my comments. I did look at your comments. Okay. What's your opinion on weed? I have no interest in weed, so if Kirby Smart had any sense, he should prepare for next year and put in Jaden Rashada as quarterback today. Yeah, but who's to say Rashad is going to be around? You know, players can change teams when they get ready now. So why would you worry about what one player is doing? You got to try to do the best you can now. And I think the quarterback they got now is gives them the best chance to win. Old Beck. But Smart, I used to be hard on Smart. I used to call him a chauffeur coach. He reminded me of Bill. What's the guy from Pittsburgh? Pittsburgh head coach. I can't even think his name. I used to call him a chauffeur coach. He'd get you all the way to the championship, and then as far as he can take you, he couldn't get through the gate. But he finally broke through and won a championship in somewhat controversial fashion, if you want to consider it that. But Kirby Smart seemed to be on the same path, so I never gave him a whole lot of credit. And because of that, you know, he broke through, and I had to give him the man his credit. I hadn't criticized him very much since then. So he's doing a great job down there in Georgia. Now, I did think that he was going to pack up and leave for Alabama, but they hired Kalen DeBoer. Once the team gets knocked off the mountain like Georgia's been, Ole Miss, you know, knocked them off, and that's the first team other than Alabama who beat them. The Giant is not as invincible anymore, and teams are going to start getting at Georgia. And I think their window of opportunity to win these championships is closing. They've done a good job getting two of them, but moving forward, I don't know how long they can sustain that. And because of that, Kirby, he's either going to move on as the team is dropping down, or he's going to rebuild and stick around. So whatever Smart does in the next 2-3 years, then you know about his coaching future. All right. Brian Jones said, okay. Burt Michaels, I'm Sofa King, retarded. Jamal Weeks said, when Colorado acquired Warren Sapp to get that deal out of the par, I knew when they were going to do something special. Well, not necessarily. He had good coaches to begin with. Sapp, he's the kind of guy that could get you motivated, but he's also the kind of guy that can get on your nerves. Sapp has done a great job getting those guys on the line, but at the same time, it took a while for those players to get spun up to the D1 level. Just because you rated number one in high school, that doesn't mean you can play on the college level. That's why they don't just recruit you, they recruit 2 or 3 other guys. So the odds are that hopefully all of you guys will be able to play, but we're assuming that 1 or 2 of you can't. And we'll be left with one, and we'll try again next. And that's just the way that those guys recruit. So this transfer portal, that's another shot in the dark, because these guys, they weren't stars where they were. They got beat out, and they trying to go somewhere else to play. These guys here don't, as much as they say they want to compete, they don't want to compete. They want to stroll into an easy situation and become a starter. And if they become the starter, great. But if they get any kind of competition, most of them bolt. They're going somewhere else where they can be a starter. That's why you see these guys with no loyalty. They're only loyal to trying to get on the playing field. And a lot of them can't play. All right. He said, I don't think so. He beat Nick Saban only one time since he's been the head coach. Well, you were talking about Smart being with against Alabama. I think he beat Alabama more than that. He beat Smart. He beat Saban in the playoffs for that one championship game. But you might be right about that. I got to check that one. Yes, Neil does make a big difference. So that's another reason why these players aren't loyal. So the stars now are starting to transfer because, say you take Travis Hunter. Let's just say he wanted to come back to college football next year. Georgia might call him up and say, look here, man, we got $10 million for you next year, and come on over and play with the Bulldogs, man. That's the reason why these guys are transferring, because they're getting better deals from where they are. So what you're seeing here is free agency on the college level. And, you know, I coach high school sports, and I try to tell these guys, look, man, when we were in high school, guys my age in the 50s and, you know, until recently, we all aspired to be a professional athlete. Well, we couldn't get to the pro athletes unless you went through college. So the goal was to try to get in college to make the pros. But now, college is a professional level. These guys are making millions of dollars in college. But you try to tell this to these kids, and they still want to just, you know, they dress the part, but they're not putting in the work. If I was coming through now, look here, man, I'm going to practice and everything the coach wants me to do. Well, before school starts, I got a routine, and after school, I'm working out again. I'm working out 3 times a day, man, because if I know I get to the college football, I made a professional level, and that's what you really want. And if you can play 4 years in high school, and you're making millions of dollars, there will even be a need to go to the professional ranks because you're making so much money. And it'd be all the better if you did make it to the pro ranks. But the pressure is gone to a large extent if you can make it to college, especially on the D1 level. Hello from Taunton, Somerset, UK. My man, how you doing, Roy Edge? All right, that kind of leads me back to Ohio State, Indiana. I was going to hold this for another day, but I'm going to talk about it now since I got some people on. Ohio State came out the other day, and they said they have a $274 million. They made $274 million last year, and they spent $259 million. And they made all the things, they said all the things they were going to do with the scholarships, what they were going to keep and what they're not. And if you're not familiar, the House vs. NCAA lawsuit that's pretty much going to force all these schools to pay college athletes money, kind of like a salary. That decision means that schools like Ohio State, who's got the biggest budget in the nation, they are going to reduce scholarships. So the effect of that decision is that, well, you might have 120, 130 players based on scholarship limit. They're not going with the limit anymore. They're going to have fewer players on scholarship because now you got to pay them, and less roster spots. They're doing that to cut their money, kind of like what the NFL does with their roster limits. And what that's doing is cutting the walk-ons off. So whereas you were invited to walk on to a school, or you just showed up out there one day and you wanted to walk on and make the team, those opportunities aren't going to be there anymore because of this new decision that these players have to deal with. So the question was asked, how is that going to hurt the walk-ons? Well, that really don't hurt the walk-ons a whole lot on the big level, because if they can't make it, they can always go down to another level. If you can walk on to a Division I program, a 1AA team, you should have no problem making, right? Well, I went to FAMU. I was a walk-on for FAMU in 94 and 95. And I can tell you with 100% certainty, schools like FAMU, they can't survive unless they have walk-ons. If you don't have walk-ons, then you don't have enough numbers to have legitimate collegiate practice. And I haven't heard anything about how the smaller schools are going to deal with paying players to come to college. They have a tough enough time trying to run the whole schools. Now all of a sudden you got to pay the players. Something's going to have to give on these lower levels, and I don't know how they're going to survive, to be honest with you. And when you add to the fact that guys like me, I would never been able to try out, because you would have these guys, say at Florida State, they couldn't walk on there, so they just transferred down to FAM and walk on there. Generally, if you can make a D1 team, you're probably better players than most of the guys on the FAMU team. And it's just not going to be enough spots for everybody who thinks they want to play football. But it's less important to have a walk-on at Florida State than it is at FAMU. Again, FAMU, they can't survive without walk-ons because they don't have the numbers. And because they don't have the numbers, they're not going to have legitimate practices. So it's going to resemble high school in a lot of ways. Whatever you got, you're a starting defensive guy, well, now you're going to have to play scout team offense or whatever else, and you're just not going to get the proper preparation that you would have if you had a full roster. So that's one of the biggest things that's going to hurt college ball with this new decision that the schools are going to have to pay the players. And moving forward, I don't know how that's going to shake out for the smaller schools, but I'd be interested to know how that works out. Okay, Nate Livestock say they only care about money. Yeah, they only care about money. And if you think about it, look at the NBA. These guys making record contracts, and when this TV deal comes out, they're talking about having $1 billion player. You know, you might sign a 10-year deal for $1 billion. You're making $100 million a year in the NBA, some of the top players. So That's why they sit out, because once you give a guy a check for 100, 150 million, whatever it is, he's going to do pretty much what he wants to do. Because you can't take it back. I mean, you can hit him for breach of contract for future payments, but how much money does a guy really need to survive in the world? You don't need all that. If you got 100 million, make the right move right away, you're set for life. So a lot of these guys are becoming more financial savvy, and they understand that. So where we might have cared about winning the championships and ownership more worried about the bottom line, these guys, they only care about getting in there to make that money so that they can set themselves up, and they don't give a damn about whether they win the championship or not. And that's your problem. We're going to try hard, but at the same time, if I don't win, I'm going to shake your hand. And then when guys like me criticize, what they're going to do, they're going to just go and pull up the computer on their phone, they're going to look at their bank account, they're going to close it, and they're going to say a word. Because they know the bottom line is they got paid. The bottom line is getting your family taken care of, and that's what they're doing. All right. Forrest says, I'm rocking with Indiana for the upset. I think Curtis Rourke will pull through today. He has 21 touchdowns and 4 picks passer rating. Yes, but, he's got those good numbers, but look at what he did against Michigan. I think those guys were a little starstruck, and that was a home game. So note how Indiana starts off today against Ohio State. I'm like you. I'm taking Indiana in this game because I think it's time for some new blood, and this new college system that they got now is opening the door for teams who got a little bit of money on the side that you overlooked. And it's not always going to be the same old cast of characters making it to the playoffs. Nate Live say winning was worth it when it was making big money. Now not so much. You say when they were not, when it was worth it when it was making big money. Okay, you talking about the sport, or you talking about, well, I look at it like this. It's worth it if you're a competitor. Every competitor wants to win, We're talking about that in class. There's this thing they call extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. Are you motivated simply by reward, or are you motivated by doing a job itself? I think that true competitors are intrinsic. They want to win because this is who they are. They're going to drive themselves and push themselves to get there. But they also want the extrinsic part of it by getting paid. And if it's me, if you're going to pay me X amount for doing this, give me an incentive base so I can reach all of it. And I'm going to work even harder the more I get. That's just me. But these kids nowadays, they only care about, they're not worried about team play. It's all about me, and me extends to the pocketbooks. Okay, acclaim Polyall. Why call it American rugby? They don't even, American rugby? Or you call it American rugby? No, we don't. Rugby's not big here, man. You got a good little clutch of people who's interested in rugby, but only way rugby overtakes American football is if they keep watering down the rules, pushing it down closer to a flag football game. And in my heart, I think that's what some people want to see, so they can make it unisex. That's just my opinion. All right, great example. My Celtics just went up for sale after having to pay Brown and Tatum max deals. So they're going to sell the team? I got to check on that. I don't think, no matter what they pay the players, the owners are always going to make far more money than what the players make. And even if Brown and Tatum didn't get max deals and want to go somewhere else, they don't care. The Celtics are going to get paid. Colorado or Kansas? I called this game 2 weeks ago. I said this is a trap game for Colorado. And I didn't never make a pick, but I'm going to make one now. If Kansas comes out and plays a little football, the way they've been playing the last couple of weeks, I'm picking them to knock off Colorado. That's my pick. But again, I also said to you that if Colorado, they're under the radar and they're probably better than what people think they are. If they can run off Kansas, well, Kansas don't come out and make a whole lot of mistakes, and they run them off like the way they did Utah last week, then Colorado is much better than people think they are, and they are going to go a long way. They're going to go a long way. That's my pick. So I'm going to go with Kansas today in the upset. I'm always with the underdog, man. But I am a road guy. I like the road teams. Colorado's on the road. Indiana's on the road. Normally I'm going full road team, but in a close game I'm going to take Kansas, man. But I got my eye on Deion. Been watching him ever since he took the Jackson State job. All right, pizza or donor? I don't know what that means. Everybody likes pizza. I don't know what donor is. The underdog is really Colorado. Have been for years. No, what you did in the past, that has no bearing on the kind of team you got today, man. They have no bearing at all. And, Colorado has been terrible the last 15, 20 years overall. They had a little flash in the pan here and there. But this is the day, man. What you did 20 years ago, that's not going to help you win the day, man. So I'm going with Kansas, but I don't think Colorado's is an underdog. They playing the way it was envisioned, and it's worked out well for them. Okay, they went up for sale this summer at damn near $1 billion in contracts with the starting five. Well, again, the TV contract is what's saving the NBA. They got this new deal that's coming, and they're going to pay these guys. Some of them going to be making over $100 million a year. I mean, are they really worth that money? No, but if that's what the market is paying them, hey, I'm all for them. But we know that they're not worth that money. Okay, who's the new sheriff in town? You talking about the Kansas coach? Let me ask you this: are you a Kansas fan, Forrest Gibbs? Tell me that. Are you a Kansas fan? Because we know Kansas is a basketball team. And I just happened to look on when they were playing North Carolina, about 2 weeks ago, or your Georgia Bulldogs. Are you talking about the quarterback, or you trying to get a new coach? I don't think Kirby's going anywhere. It wouldn't make sense for him. He's got it made. He's an alumni of Georgia. Why leave? I was talking about prime time. He's a new shit. Man, you crazy. You know what he said about Vince Dooley? He said he actually went on a recruiting trip, and they called him up there when it was cold. And he said Dooley was talking to him like he was going to have to red shirt and all this other stuff. And he took offense to that because he felt like he was better than the starting cornerbacks he already had in college. So he wasn't too high on Vince Dooley. And because of those comments he's made, those people, they love Vince Dooley in Georgia, and they're not going to forget that. So I don't see Deion ever going anywhere near Georgia to be a head coach. And like I say, Kirby Smart, he's not going anywhere. But anyway, there's a lot of things we could rap about, but it's getting ready, close to be kickoff time, and I think that it's going to be some good football today. And Alabama is not a foregone conclusion against Oklahoma. They did lose to Vanderbilt, and they can lose to Oklahoma. I think Texas is going to survive over Kentucky, and Auburn is dangerous today because you don't ever know what kind of team Hugh Freeze is going to have show up, and they can beat Texas A&M, but I don't think it's going to happen. So we're going to have that showdown next week in College Station for a spot in the SEC championship game. And I think Kansas, they're going to show up today and probably edge Colorado at the bell. And I think Indiana's going to pull away from Ohio State late. Ohio State is kind of beat up right now, and it's not the best team. It's who's the healthiest at this point. And it's going to be more important as the next month rolls by. Forrest Gibbs, man, send me a comment, man. You sound like me and you can go back and forth on the interview one day. So drop a comment through the email box and contact me that way. I will come back on tomorrow before the NFL games kick off. But right now, I got to go watch me some football, man. So I appreciate you guys coming in. Jeff Coleman said Alabama is on fire right now. Well, they better be ready tonight because Oklahoma, they still got some pride down there. I don't have much confidence in Venables, but he was the coach that beat them when they were playing for the championships at Clemson. So he knows Alabama well, and he's not going to be afraid to go against them. So if Oklahoma can show up tonight and they close in the end, they can beat Alabama. And one other comment about that before I forget. Milroe, he's a great quarterback when he's able to run. Does that remind you of anybody in the NFL right now? If you're able to run the football, that opens everything else up. but can you stand in there and throw it when you have to? That's what I want to see from Milroe also. So you think about that, Mr. Acclaim Polyall. But I appreciate you guys chiming in. Like, subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. And it's going to be some good football today. Forrest Gibbs, hit me up, man, through my comments, and maybe we can line a interview up and go live or something face to face. Go from there. For the rest of you guys, you have a great football day. This is Sports for Real. I'm out.